Alright, so it's been about a year and a half since this was two-wheel drive, had a old 350 from Blazer in it. So it doesn't have the 350 from the Blazer anymore, but it does have the hood. So we're keeping them tied together. But it does have a 96 12-valve Cummins P-pump, ZF6 out of a Ford, MP271, which is a manual shifted transfer case to keep it old school and all tied together. And it's all sitting on, as you know, if you followed the series from the beginning, a 2005 four-wheel drive F-350 frame that we had shortened to 164.5, which is the wheelbase on these old square bodies. So this is the end of what we're calling stage one. So it runs, it drives, you can haul with it, do everything. It's just not 100% cosmetically pleasing. So we're gonna take some dents out of here, paint this up eventually, and get everything matched up. But we'll go through what we've got done so far and let us know if there's anything you'd like to see done in the comments below. So as you can see right here, we'll pump the hood. 12 valves installed. If you followed the series, we've had to massage the firewall a little bit. We have the nice big filter, whatever brand it was, Napa or Wix. We got the turbo on. My father-in-law made this sweet connector pipe, guaranteed to be the envy of all crackheads, local and otherwise. We have the electric fans installed here. We have the dual battery set up. We use the Yamaha outboard battery cables. And we have the Hawkesby controller installed over here. We have all the relays and everything for the fans and for the fuel shutoff. And then we have our tiny tack installed right here on the #1 fuel rail. All right, so we have the good old Amazon intake. We have these intercooler pipes that are the factory Dodge ones. Those came from Fozzie's used truck parks on eBay. They're from Canada, so they have a lot of rusted out stuff that still got good parts. Everybody in the States wants like 300 bucks. I think I only paid like $200 shipped here after the exchange and everything. We have the factory Squarebody Hydro Boost brakes, which are great because we're running 4-wheel discs on here. We have all the steering hooked up, the Ford steering box with the Chevrolet shafts hooked to it. You can go back and see a couple videos ago how we did that. Another good thing about going to this frame is we have the crossover steering, which is how they came standard. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we've got. Over here, the Ford hydraulic clutch is set up. I already run down there to the ZF6 transmission, so that was super clean. If we can get stuck somewhere, we can just walk into any auto parts store and buy one of those pre-bled systems and click it in and be back on the road. So we have the shifter in here. We've got the factory Ford ZF6 shift boot that we got to install. We have our four-wheel drive shifter coming through the floor right here, so it still gives us plenty of space to get to the gas pedal. We have all the factory square body pedals. I know online people are trying to rip people off for like 400 bucks for these. I picked them up for 50 bucks at the local junkyard. Threw them all in here. Had to do a little cut and customization on them to get them just right with the ZF6 or Ford master slave cylinder, but we did. We've just got a almost like a glorified trampoline spring up underneath here for the clutch spring. And then we have our tiny tack right up here on the steer wheel on the column. And as soon as you turn the key on, it powers up. And it'll give you how many hours you've got. Factory dash is back in. This little pod of gauges works. These two do not work yet. So we have the exhaust temp gauge, which is probably the most important gauge if you're going to do a Cummins swap. If you get over about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit for any extended period of time, supposedly it's bad for the motor. So we got that in there to monitor that. We have boosts for fun. And then we have the fuel gauge. The only reason we went with the fuel gauge over here instead of the factory one here is running that Ford cylinder and that Ford fuel tank in the back. For more capacity, it's plastic, and you don't have to have those junky metal ones with all those switch valves and everything. You have to run different ohms, so this is a selectable ohms, so it works perfectly with what we got going on back here. We have the rest of the interior that we'll continue to refine over time, but we'll go back here and show you a couple of these other things. For exhaust, we went with a 4-inch, basically Ford stock exhaust deleted, so it's just a 4-inch straight pipe all the way out the back. From the turbo, you saw in one of the other videos where we built that downpipe. And then we threw some mud flaps on just to go for the old school look and keeps this area nice and clean. I rode around the other day when it was raining and the back of the truck wasn't all filthy and nasty, so that's an added plus. We kept the factory bumper that came on this truck for now until we can find one of those cool step Chevrolet bumpers to go in right here. Tailgate on, of course, one of those little cosmetic things we still got to touch up along with bed line in the bed. But we took out that horrendous gooseneck hitch and put in a B&W flip over hitch. We patched the bed panel with a AMD patch panel, thick or thicker than the factory floor plate here. And we got the B&W flip over hitch installed. One of the nice things about running that 05 Ford frame is you can pretty much show up at the junkyard and they'll still have stuff for newer trucks. So I paid, looked at my receipt the other day, $200 for that B&W flip over hitch. We wire wheeled it and painted it. New those things are about $500 to $600. And then we added the third brake light and cargo light, this LED up at the top. And of course we painted that roof as well. And then we're gonna rhino line this floor a little bit later on, and you'll see that in another video. I think that's pretty much it. All right, so along with our nice racing slicks right here, we have the factory Ford fuel tank. Like I said earlier, it's plastic, so it's gonna last a lot longer. It's easier to get to if you have to change the sending unit, because you can just pop the bed and the sending unit's right there, you pull it out, throw a new one in, and you're good to go. So a lot of these features are why we picked the 05 Ford frame, and we'll go up front and we'll discuss a little bit of suspension and some radius arms, that sort of stuff, and why we ended up going with this frame. So we have nice beefy tie rods in here. We have the front sway bar, and then most importantly we have that factory crossover steering, and then we have these sweet Gatekeeper off-road steerable pod mounts, which we'll show you in a minute how those things work. They're pretty sweet. And then of course it's hooked up to the aux beam switch so we can strobe it and everything like that. So in here we have the coilover solid axle. I wanted to keep a solid axle because the Chevrolet frames, they don't have a really good reputation with the front ends on those IFS trucks. So we have a Dana Super 60 up front, nice beefy coilovers to keep a good ride, springs, of course you got the brakes, and then the frame's also boxed, so we didn't have to go through and weld all those boxing plates in like you would if we kept the square body frame.